Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to brief you all on today. Today's date is September 19th, 2025, and it's Friday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all ready for your weekend. Hope you have a great Friday out there and enjoy every bit of it. Let's talk about the news today. We've got a lot of information to cover with this war update. We're actually going to start off with a very big story out of the EU today, as they have unleashed a new package of sanctions onto Russia. So let's talk about this new report here on your screen. The EU unveils its new 19th package of sanctions against Russia. The EU proposed Friday to speed up its ban on Russian natural gas imports, part of a new sanctions package aimed at weakening the Kremlin's ability to continue with its war against Ukraine. So, very big news today. We actually heard over the last few days from numerous mainstream news outlets out of Germany. Also, Bloomberg was reporting yesterday that apparently the EU was going to be unleashing this new package of sanctions onto Russia. So, we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. We'll go over all the details and give you the information behind this new package of sanctions. We also have reports today of 3 Russian fighter jets that violated Estonian airspace today, approaching the capital of Tallinn. That is a very big report that was literally just breaking in like the last hour or so, right before I got started recording this for you guys. Very big news. We continue to hear that the Russians are violating airspace of Nato. This is another NATO nation in the Baltic nations just north of Latvia. And now we have yet again another airspace violation. We've actually been seeing a lot of violations of airspace with Estonia numerous times from Russia recently, so very concerning there. Also, Ukraine launched a massive attack on a Russian Marines base in Kursk region. This is going to be north of Ukraine's border from the Sumy region. And according to Ukrainian reports, the Russians suffered heavy losses. So that's very big news. There's a new video coming out today. It's very long. We'll watch some of it and check it out and see what the extent of the damage was to that Russian Marines base in the Kursk region. We'll talk about that soon. And also numerous other reports we'll be covering in today's update with this war between Russia and Ukraine. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's hop in over here to X with Nexta. It says breaking. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen unveils details of 19 sanctions package against Russia. The new package targets energy, financial services, and trade restrictions. Key measures include, so let's go over some of these. First one says a full ban on transactions with Rosneft and Gazprom Neft. Okay, that's big news. That's 2 major oil companies inside of Russia going to be hit with a full ban on transactions. That'll make it more difficult for them to do business. Also, prohibition of Russian liquefied natural gas imports into Europe by January 1st, 2027. So they're speeding up the phasing out of liquefied natural gas imports into Europe. Apparently, they're going to be moving it to January 1st, 2027 now. That's literally just over a year from now. So very good news to hear that Europe is moving away from Russian gas. Also, use of frozen Russian assets to secure loans for Ukraine. Okay, so it looks like Europe's going to continue using these frozen Russian assets sitting in banks across Europe, approximately 300 billion euros worth, and they'll continue using that to secure loans for Ukraine. We also heard reports recently that the EU is looking into taking some of those funds out. I think upwards of like 170 to 190 billion euros potentially, and they might hand that over to Ukraine. Not sure if they're going to do that yet, but they are talking about that. It also says sanctions on 118 additional vessels from Russia's shadow fleet. Okay, going after Russia's shadow fleet of tankers that are illegally transporting oil around the world. Another 118 have been sanctioned. Restrictions on the MIR payment system. Okay, I don't know too much about this, but apparently another payment system that Russia uses, they'll be placing restrictions on that. Also, new export bans on goods and technologies used by Russia on the battlefield. Okay, that's very big. Also, that'll affect their ability to wage war against Ukraine also on the front line. For the first time, sanctions will cover cryptocurrency platforms and prohibit crypto transactions. Okay, I'm sure the Russians are also using crypto to get around a lot of the bans on like the SWIFT banking system and things like that. They're utilizing crypto to purchase a lot of things, so that'll also stop them from making a lot of transactions on cryptocurrency platforms. Also, sanctions against Russian and foreign banks, as well as 45 companies from Russia and third countries, including Chinese firms accused of helping Moscow evade sanctions and supporting its military sector. Okay, so sanctions against Russia and foreign banks, and also some companies in different third countries that are helping out Russia, including Chinese firms. So that's very good to see as well. And then finally, lowering the oil price cap to $47.60. Okay, so they finally done that. I'm sure that'll put a lot of pressure on Russia's oil exports as well. Very good news to hear. And it says restrictions on issuing Schengen visas to Russians were left out of this package. They've been talking about that also. Apparently, the EU did not move on to that. So here's just a picture of Ursula von der Leyen as she was announcing this today. So very, very big news. Should definitely hurt the Russian economy even more and get us closer to forcing an end to this war. We'll see what these sanctions happen to do here over the next weeks. Now from Kaja Kallas, she put out a statement here. This is going to be the Vice President of the European Commission commenting on this new sanctions package today. It says, Moscow thinks it can keep its war going. We are making sure it pays the price for it. Today we present our 19th sanctions package. Every sanction reduces the Kremlin's ability to wage war. We won't stop putting pressure on Russia until it ends its war. And I think the EU is going to keep doing that. I'm pretty sure they're probably already working on the 20th package of sanctions. They're going to keep doing this until Russia decides to end this war in Ukraine. Isn't that crazy now? 19 package of sanctions and Russia is still able to wage war against Ukraine. Hopefully by now it'll continue to put more pressure and we can see a safe end to this war at some point soon. Now from Anton Gerashenko, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets reportedly flew into Estonia's airspace today, reported by Politico, citing sources. According to reports, they crossed about 5 nautical miles inside Estonia towards Tallinn, that's going to be the capital of Estonia, and spent about 12 minutes in Nato airspace. Can you believe that? Here's the report today from Politico. Russian fighter jets breach Estonian airspace near Tallinn. Russian MiG-31s flew into Estonian airspace and approached Tallinn before being pushed back by NATO jets. So if you're not familiar where Tallinn is at, it's literally on the northern side of Estonia, right on the edge of where the Gulf of Finland is at. So apparently these fighter jets were still inside of maritime waters, but they were within NATO airspace in Estonia, approaching Tallinn just before being pushed back by NATO jets. So what is going on here? Russia continues to provoke NATO and test NATO's resolve, just like with that drone attack that we had onto Poland just about a week ago. Now we've got these fighter jets violating Estonian airspace over here, getting very close to approaching the capital of Tallinn. Very dangerous situation, and we'll have to see what NATO decides to do, how they're going to respond to this. But so far, they haven't really responded a whole lot. Very, very dangerous. Now from next to Ukrainian forces hit Russian Marines base in Kursk region. Troops of the 810th Brigade have been implicated in war crimes, including the execution of Ukrainian POWs. According to Ukrainian reports, the Russians suffered heavy losses. Ammunition depots, a storage base, and concealed sites for weapons and equipment were destroyed. Yeah, this was an absolutely massive attack that's ongoing for just about 2 minutes in this video. We're not going to watch the whole thing because it's very long. What I will do, though, is link it down below for you guys in the description of this video if you want to go watch it yourself on X. You're more than welcome to. But as we can see in this video, numerous strikes were being carried out. I'm not sure if this was HIMARS or what this was. Was it some sort of airstrike? Were these air-launched bombs? I don't know. But definitely a lot of different airstrikes or strikes here being carried out onto this Russian Marine base in the Kursk region. Again, going to be just over the border from Ukraine's Sumy region up in northeastern Ukraine. We have this Russian base over here in the Kursk region. This is the same area where Ukraine opened up a major incursion into Russian territory just back in August of last year. So crazy news today. You guys can go check that out for yourself if you want to watch the full thing. But I do have information on this today from War Translated. Cyber Barashna researchers analyzed a Special Operations Forces video showing the strike on a logistics hub of Russia's 810th Naval Infantry Brigade. The attack took place near an elevator facility in Ruri-5, covering 0.04 square kilometers. A total of 19 hits on buildings and 1 miss were recorded. Yeah, so apparently this base got leveled. Look at this map that was created here that kind of shows all these different strikes. So apparently there was 19 strikes on different buildings over here on this Russian base. And yeah, there was reports that Russian soldiers were being injured, possibly even losing their lives here in this incident, as we had a huge attack from Ukraine over here. 19 hits on buildings, one miss was recorded, according to Cyber Barashno when they analyzed this video. This kind of showing the hits on the different buildings. So very crazy news today. Now, war translated on the night of the 17th to the 18th of September. That was going to be the night before last night. It says a drone strike hit an ammunition depot in occupied Luhansk region. Detonation reportedly continued throughout the day. 5 vehicles were destroyed. So unfortunately, no video to confirm this strike, but this is information on what looks like a Russian Telegram channel. It says strike on the ammunition depot on the night of September 17 to the 18th. 2025, a strike was carried out on the ammunition depot of the 17th Tank Regiment of the 70th Motorized Rifle Division of the 18th Army, Military Unit 12315. The attack was carried out using 3 UAVs. The strike took place near Bodanivka settlement in the Luhansk region. This is going to be an occupied territory held by the Russians in Ukraine. It says the detonation of ammunition continued throughout September 18th. Firefighting efforts began in the evening of that day. Also, 5 units of vehicles were destroyed, likely used for transporting ammunition. Okay, so 3 Ukrainian UAVs struck this ammunition depot, caused a huge explosion over here. Looks like it was still burning throughout the day, according to this information. It says firefighting efforts began in the evening of that day. So, crazy strike over here. Yeah, again, unfortunately, no confirmation of video footage or anything like that or pictures of this strike, but this is being widely reported on X today. This was an attack that took place the night before. Also for Max 25, Russian radar station was attacked in annexed Crimea, injuring 2 servicemen, according to Astra. On September 13th, drones attacked a Russian radar station near Olenevka. Preliminary reports indicate that the radar's protective dome was damaged. Okay, we actually reported this on September 13th. This would have been Saturday of last week. And we had a report that this area was being attacked. Some sort of radar station came under attack. So apparently that was confirmed here. There's a radar station that was attacked in Crimea, injuring 2 Russian servicemen. Again, this took place on September 13th, last Saturday near Olenevka. This is going to be down in Crimea, in occupied Crimea. So it says here radar's protective dome was damaged. So we had another radar that apparently was struck. Here's a little bit more information regarding this story now, too. From War Translated, Russia is building a new site near its air defense positions at Cape Tarkankut, close to Olenivka. According to the monitoring group Crimean Wind, citing satellite imagery, the site appeared within the past 2 weeks, 270 meters northwest of a radar location. A fire was recorded there on September 13th following a drone strike. So yeah, apparently more air defense positions and a new radar site is being constructed down here near Olenivka, and that's probably the site that we're looking at here that came under attack, is what I'm thinking. And maybe Ukraine just recently found out that the Russians were constructing this site, this radar site. That's why they went ahead and bombed it last week with several drones, and we had a destruction to probably one of the radar domes, what was being reported here. So that's crazy news. A very big hits by Ukraine. They continue to destroy radars down here and air defense systems, leaving the Crimean Peninsula blind. Now from Ukrainian Review, in Kyiv, debris from a downed UAV fell at several locations. The trolley bus network was damaged in the Shevchenkivsky district. Sorry guys, kind of a long name to say there. According to KMVA, card payments and ticket validation on the high-speed tram and funicular may be disrupted. Okay, so apparently a high-speed tram in Kyiv was affected due to falling debris from a drone that was shot down. We've got video footage here today. Just 7 seconds. Take a look. Alright, so it looks like, according to this video, the Russians were attacking Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, again overnight. I think there was over 80 drones that were going into Ukraine. Here's one of them that reportedly was being shot down by Ukrainian air defense teams. Very frightening footage there. Now from Ozen Intuit, the company Firepoint, which produces Flamingo, announced that it has increased missile production to 50 units per month. The company reported that 30 Flamingo missiles were manufactured in August. So just a month ago, they were producing just about 1 of these per day. Now they're producing almost upwards of 2 per day, so 50 units per month. That's very good news to hear. We've been hearing that the Flamingo missile, this company Firepoint, they're actually trying to get this up to like 7 units per day by the end of the year. So it looks like they're moving very quickly. Already 50 units per month, up from 30 last month in August. Very good news to hear. Now for Max 25, by the end of the year, Russia will try to launch up to 1,000 missile and drone strikes on Ukraine per day. According to Rustem Umarov, he's going to be the head of the National Security and Defense Council inside of Russia, or the secretary, actually, excuse me. He was the former defense minister out of Ukraine. So he's reporting today that apparently by the end of the year, we're going to be seeing 1,000 missiles and drones going into Ukraine every single day. We have been seeing a lot more drones and missiles attacking Ukraine more frequently, but nothing near 1,000 per day, like what's been reported for a few weeks now. But hopefully that won't be the case. But we know the Russians are massively producing more drones right now, which will allow them to carry out more drone strikes inside of Ukraine. Now, for Max 25, U.S. senators are seeking to increase pressure on Russia through sanctions against its shadow fleet, according to the Financial Times. A group of senators will introduce the Shadow Fleets Act, which would expand sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers used to circumvent Western restrictions starting in 2022. The measures would target vessels and Russian liquefied natural gas projects financing the war in Ukraine. Here's the report today. U.S. senators seek to raise pressure on Russia with shadow fleet sanctions. Bipartisan lawmakers set out punitive measures as Donald Trump's efforts to negotiate end to Ukraine war stall. Okay, very big news here. We've got U.S. senators moving to put out a bill called the Shadow Fleets Act. And if it gets passed, this will expand sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers. And we know that this is a major lifeline for Russia. If they don't have these oil tankers anymore, then Russian oil is not going to be exported around the world. So we know that the EU just unleashed more sanctions onto some of these vessels today. I think more than 100 was being reported earlier. Now we've got the U.S. potentially moving towards doing this as well. So let's see if these U.S. senators can get this passed through Congress. And if it does, that'll definitely hurt Russia big time. Now, from Ukrainian Review, the West intends to invest billions of dollars in developing Ukraine's military-industrial complex as an alternative strategy to Ukraine's accession to NATO, according to the Washington Post. Now, that's interesting. So apparently they're going to be investing billions of dollars to help Ukraine out with their military and support their fight against Russia. And they're going to do this instead of giving Ukraine NATO membership, because we know most likely right now, realistically, Ukraine's not going to be able to get into NATO, especially while they're at war with Russia. Now, will they be able to get into NATO in the future? I guess that waits to be seen. But apparently, in the meantime, they're going to be investing a lot of money into Ukraine. So I expect that to be a thing. I mean, we've already been seeing Europe really stepping up for Ukraine and helping them out. That'll probably increase in the future, especially if this war continues and Vladimir Putin decides not to end the war. So we'll see how that goes. But that's a very big report today from the Washington Post. Now for next up, Putin believes he will win a war of attrition, according to the Institute for the Study of War. Yesterday, Putin said that more than 700,000 Russian soldiers are on the front line, while Gerasimov reported on an offensive along the entire front line. Experts at the Institute for the Study of War believe such messages signal that the Kremlin is counting on dragging out the war by using its numerical advantage. According to analysts, Putin sincerely believes Russia can outlast Western support for Ukraine and eventually exhaust the Ukrainian armed forces, depriving them of the strength to resist. So this is an interesting report today from the Institute for the Study of War. So apparently they're saying that Putin believes he will win this war if he waits out NATO and Ukraine. Now, there have been some reports that apparently it comes down to two things. You know, which side is going to break first? Are the Ukrainian armed forces going to fall apart on the front line? Or is Russia's economy going to collapse? It kind of seems like it's a coin toss between the two. We'll have to see what happens, but let me know what you think. Do you agree with Vladimir Putin? Do you think Putin thinks that he can outlast NATO and continue to fight inside of Ukraine? I mean, we've been seeing that no matter what happens to Russia, they continue the fighting over there. And even though what we've been reporting, even like yesterday, Russia's economy completely in shambles, they still continue the fighting over there. And Vladimir Putin does not stop. So let me know how you feel on that story today. Very interesting. Now for next up. The head of the Russian Foreign Ministry is furious with Europe. It says, quote, EU leaders don't want peace in Ukraine. They want revenge for World War II, according to Lavrov. Earlier, he also claimed that Europe has no place at the negotiating table. So Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister out of Russia, he's been making a lot of crazy statements lately, hasn't he? We've been talking about him. Just the other day, he was stating that apparently if Western troops show up inside of Ukraine even as peacekeepers to secure Ukraine's sovereignty after the war comes to an end. They would be direct, legitimate targets for the Russian military. So, Lavrov stating all kinds of crazy things like this, saying that the EU doesn't want peace, when clearly I think it's the other way around, that Russia doesn't want peace. If they really wanted to stop the fighting inside of Ukraine, they would just withdraw from Ukraine, or at least, just discontinue the fighting on the front line and call for a ceasefire. But we don't see any of that indication from Russia. Clearly, Russia wants to continue the fighting inside of Ukraine. And also, yeah, he did state yesterday that Europe has no place at the negotiating table. And this is also another major sign, because we know that Ukraine wants Europe to be there at the negotiating table when they talk with Russia. So that also indicates that Russia is not ready to end this war if they're not willing to allow Europe to be there when Ukraine requests that. So very big news today. Now from Kyiv Independent, Lavrov to meet Rubio at UN General Assembly next week, Russia says. There is no agenda yet, but the meeting is planned. Vasily Nebenzia, Russia's UN ambassador, said in an interview with the Rossiya 24 television channel. Apparently during this UN General Assembly next week, we're going to be having Lavrov showing up over there, the foreign minister that we just talked about from Russia. Apparently he's going to be meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, so that should be interesting. I'm sure we'll get some details out of those conversations when these two meet next week. Now, Vicegrad 24, Russia laying groundwork for aggression against Finland. According to the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, the Kremlin is conducting a coordinated information campaign against Finland, echoing the rhetoric that preceded the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The campaign's goal is to discredit the Finnish government and paint a picture of internal instability. Just yesterday, several Russian officials issued sharp statements. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that Finland has supposedly lost its neutral gloss and was in the state of revanchism, while Putin's special envoy, Sergei Ivanov, declared that relations with Helsinki have been effectively destroyed due to NATO membership. So yeah, apparently some Russian officials making some statements recently, drumming up war with Finland, or at least putting the pretext of a war with Finland here. So stating things like Finland has lost its neutral gloss, okay, that they're no longer neutral considering that they joined into NATO. And also it talks about Finland being in a state of revanchism. So revanchism is basically when a country seeks to regain lost territory. And during World War II, Finland did lose some territory over to the Soviet Union that's currently in control by Russia. So you can see Russia just kind of painting the picture here that Finland wants war with Russia, and they've been kind of talking like that about Finland lately and a few other nations in NATO. And there's just so much talk right now that, could Russia be ready to attack a NATO member, such as, for example, maybe Finland or maybe one of the Baltic nations, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. So much reports and talks about this, and yet again, another story that Russia is ready for war with NATO, and they're actively preparing for it. Now from Spravdi Stratcom Center, along with new heavy tax increases on the population starting November 1st, Russians will be cut off from foreign cars to raise money for the war. Moscow is hiking the tax fee on both new and used foreign automobiles to extreme levels. The result, Russia is slamming the door on BMW, Audi, Volvo, Hyundai, Kia, Ligiane, if I'm saying that right, Zeekr, and more. Prices on luxury vehicles will increase by up to 50%, mid-range cars by 30%, even domestic junk like Ladas, I'm not sure how to say that, will rise 15%. To import a used BMW X3 for personal use, a Russian will now pay 1.2 million rubles in fees, a BMW X5 3.2 million rubles, an Audi Q7 TDI 3.1 million rubles. Today the fee is only 5,200 rubles. So look at that, 5,000 rubles up to 3 million rubles people will be paying just to purchase a foreign vehicle like a BMW or an Audi. So these luxury vehicles are going to become more expensive and are going to price a lot of people out from purchasing them. It also says another sign that Russia is only sinking further into isolation and poverty by its own hand. So we talked about yesterday the Russian government raising taxes on their citizens with the whole VAT tax thing. Now we've got this report today that they're also going after the richer side of Russia, the richer population. They're going to be taxing them also technically with these fees to purchase any luxury vehicles inside of Russia. So another way that the Russian government is trying to get whatever funding they can to continue this war inside of Ukraine. And this shows that really the only option they have left is to tax their citizens to death now with these new fees here with these foreign automakers. So very big news today. People are going to be driving more vehicles like this inside of Russia here very soon. Now, Vicegrad 24, Russia's moving troops and supplies through disused gas pipelines to reduce the risk of drone attacks, Bloomberg reports. The latest use of pipelines for troop movements occurred near Kupiansk. Analysts say pipeline warfare is likely to become an important part of the Kremlin strategy, given the dense network of gas connections inside of Ukraine, a method protected from drone strikes. Here's a report today from Bloomberg. Russia sends troops through idle gas pipes to evade drone threat. So, yeah, we have been reporting that. I think it was around the city of Kupiansk up in the northeastern side of Ukraine in the Kharkiv region. The Russians have been recorded to be using pipelines over there to try to infiltrate inside of Kupiansk. This is also a tactic that the Russians used up in the Kursk region just before Ukraine basically got pushed out of there for the most part. When they opened up that incursion in August of 2024, they stayed in there for about close to a year, I want to say, before they finally had to pull out. And that's what the Russians did too. They utilized a gas pipeline system to infiltrate into Sudza, which was a major stronghold for the Ukrainians. And then that's when we started to see the Kursk region kind of collapse for Ukraine. But the Russians, yeah, apparently they're using more of these idle gas pipeline systems to evade drone threats. So this really shows how effective the FPV drones controlling the front line are. If the Russians have to literally use pipeline systems to move through Ukraine, they're literally crawling into the combat zones in Ukraine. This really shows that Ukraine has control of the skies over there with these FPV drones. So very big news. Now, Vicegrad 24, Russia and Vietnam created a secret payment scheme for arms supplies. The Associated Press obtained documents from a Vietnamese official. According to a 2024 document prepared by state oil company Petro Vietnam, or PVN, for the Ministry of Industry and Trade ahead of Vladimir Putin's visit to Hanoi, joint oil ventures between the two countries are being used to pay for Russian weapons deliveries. The transfers are conducted inside Russia and Vietnam without using cross-border payments through the SWIFT system. This allows them to avoid attention of Western sanctions authorities and keep the transaction secret. Okay, so apparently they're using joint oil ventures to purchase weapons from Russia is what Vietnam is doing. It's kind of like what India is doing. They're purchasing weapons from Russia as well, and that's why also they got hit by tariffs recently from the U.S. So what are we going to see now? Are we going to see some tariffs or sanctions coming down onto Vietnam for doing this? And this really shows that, despite all these sanctions, Russia always finds a way to do business, sell weapons to somebody, sell oil or whatever it might be. This is why sanctions have to keep coming down onto Russia, because they always find a way to get around them. Now from next, Russia supplying weapons to Italian mafia, reported by Linkiesta. Italian investigative journalists have uncovered that shipments of firearms and ammunition from Russia's Tula arms plant produced between 2010 and 2020 are making their way to Italy. The weapons manufactured without serial numbers are smuggled into Mediterranean ports hidden in barrels of oil, fuel, or lubricants, allegedly via Russia's shadow fleet. According to the report, these are not defaced weapons, but factory-made unmarked arms, which would only be possible with government approval. This means Russian authorities are directly involved in supplying weapons to international criminal organizations. Europol has already warned in 2023 that the appearance of new unmarked weapons is often tied to quasi-state complicity in the illegal arms trade. Okay, so not only are they doing business with Vietnam behind the scenes, but also supplying the Italian mafia with weapons. And apparently these are ghost weapons, from what I understand. These are weapons that are unmarked and directly coming from Russia's Tula's arms plant. Okay, so apparently the Russian government is approving the sale of these weapons. And this reminds me of the story that we heard just the other day that U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina, he's pushing for a bill right now to label Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism for the abduction of all these Ukrainian children. And that's what it makes me think of. Yeah, Russia should definitely be labeled a state sponsor of terrorism, especially if we're seeing stories like this, and this happens to be true. So I'll wait for more information on that. But apparently, according to Linkiesta, they're reporting that Russia is supplying weapons to the Italian mafia as well behind the scenes. So very big news. Now from Mario Nawfal, Russia may have given North Korea nuclear sub-reactors. South Korean intelligence says Moscow may have supplied Pyongyang with 2 or 3 submarine reactor modules, possibly including a full working nuclear propulsion system. The parts are believed to have come from decommissioned Russian subs, giving North Korea tech it has long sought in exchange for aiding Russia's war in Ukraine. If confirmed, nuclear subs could let Pyongyang spy and strike undetected, posing new threats to Seoul and Washington. Wow, big news today as well that Russia may have given some nuclear sub reactors over to North Korea. We know that they have a defense pact together. They're helping each other out militarily. North Korea sent troops and military equipment over to Russia. This could be one of the biggest things we've ever heard of Russia giving over to North Korea. And apparently, the South Korean authorities are investigating this right now to see if that is the case. So that means could North Korea have nuclear subs in the future? This could be a very dangerous situation, destabilize areas over here in the Asian Pacific region. And also, this could pose a major risk over to South Korea and also to the U.S. in that area. So that is huge news today. Let me know what you think on that one. Then also for Max 25, Ukrainian air defense shot down 71 out of 86 Russian drones. So 86 drones going into Ukraine overnight, and a good 71 out of those 86 were destroyed. So very good numbers to hear. We did have that drone that was destroyed over Kyiv, did cause some damage over there. Aside from that, not too many reports of destruction inside of Ukraine overnight, and we can clearly see why. A very good majority of these drones were taken out. Now our final update here from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of September 19th, according to the armed forces of Ukraine. And here's our final update. Russia's losses as of September 19th, 1,150 troops, 1 AFV, 44 vehicles and fuel tanks, 0 tanks, 17 artillery systems, 211 UAVs, 1 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 3 special equipment. So lots being destroyed today. We had an air defense system that was destroyed. I wonder if that was that Buk M2 or M3. We had one that was reported over the last 48 hours that was destroyed. Not sure if that's what they're counting there, but we did have 1 anti-aircraft warfare system knocked out. Also another MLRS launcher, a multiple launch rocket system. We've been seeing 1 or 2 of these per day for a while now. Artillery system is very low today. We usually see at least 30 or so on average there. Tanks and AFVs almost non-existent, pretty much nothing, just 1 AFV. Vehicles and fuel tanks, one of the lowest numbers we've seen in a very long time. Typically see at least 75 to 80 or more in this category, and probably, the lowest number there, 44. I haven't seen that kind of number in a while now. And then 1,150 troops, the highest amount of troop losses that we've seen in a long time. We usually see about 800 to 900 on average there. So troop losses up a little bit for the Russian side as well. And guys, I want to thank you very much for being here for today's update on September 19th, 2025. And I hope you all have a great day out there and enjoy your Friday as we get into your weekend. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.